Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for chatting with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. So, I'll get going with the basics. Um, so how did the band come to be?
Uh, we kind of grew out of a uh, open mic in Columbus, Ohio in 1990. Well, the open mic was in 90 and the band actually officially became a band in 91. And basically, the open mic was being held by a co-founder, John Mullins. And I used to go down there and play my songs, and I heard his songs. And we kind of liked each other's songs. We just started playing with each other, and some other people who were hanging out down there eventually started just getting up on stage and playing with us. And eventually we became a band.
Very cool. So, when I've seen you listed a lot, you guys kind of have like a wide range of artists and genres that you guys seem to be, into. I was gonna say, so how did you guys kind of combine your sound together to find what you are now?
Well, back when it started, basically John and I just sounded really good singing together. Our harmonies really worked well together. So we just kind of played off of that. A lot of I would like to think that the basis of the band's based around songs themselves. Um, yeah, I mean, I'd like to think that the sound of the band's built around the songs themselves, as opposed to some bands that seem to be built around the jams, and they kind of put songs around the jams sometimes. The majority of the songs that we play stand on their own without the jams, and the jams enhance the songs. So, initially the sound was built around my songs and John's songs, and it grew out of there. Of course, at some point we didn't have John in the band anymore, and then we went to the next phase where it was my songs and another guy's songs, and then it kept evolving that way. But uh, ultimately, songs. You have to have songs, and then everybody in the band puts their parts to the songs, and we go from there.
Very interesting. I mean, I guess I'm kind of interested in how you kind of bring together multiple influences in jam music because I feel like some jam bands have a very specific, like they're trying to sound like a jam band, and other
Right.
ones are like they're enjoying that jam can like that can be a process of what they're doing, but they're pulling from a lot of different genres. They're not just trying to be a jam band.
Yeah. I mean, I can't speak for other jam bands,
Yeah.
and what they do, and particularly, but I can speak for myself for sure. And my number one thing, as far as what I enjoy the most about my career, I guess, is the songwriting. That's what I get the most satisfaction out of. Not the process of writing a song, but having developed the songs and having them, being able to play them for people, and having them be, you know, getting the response from the people while we're playing them, or even if I'm just playing them by myself, on like acoustically or whatever, or streaming through the pandemic and that sort of thing, where the jams didn't exist as much. So, um, and as a songwriter, I guess I make a conscious effort to not stick within one genre. Um, so, in that, bringing that to the band makes our band a band that, and not just myself, but other songwriters as well. It makes the band, sound like we can play things that lean towards bluegrass and things that lean towards rock and roll and blues and funky, and maybe a little jazzy if we're lucky, and things like that. We can really kind of mix it up that way, and then, like I said, the jams come with it. Now, that's not to say that I haven't written anything with it having an idea in my mind that I want this jam to go this way or anything like that. It certainly happens, but there has to be a song, and well, for me there does anyway. So, yeah, I mean, I like bringing in all the influences I've ever had, and this might be your next question, it might not be, but my influences are everything I've ever listened to. I can't, like, I could give you a laundry list of, you know, of influences. Yeah, I could go on all day about influences, because it's everything, even things that I didn't spend a lot of time listening to, and they'll pop in once in a while, things that I would never just listen to when I'm sitting around, and I could go back and listen to a song and be like, wow, this obviously came from, I don't know, like say, just as an example, like grunge. I'm not a fan of grunge, but there might be something in a song that's like, yeah, that's obviously influenced by that type of music. I'm not sure there is any grunge in my music. There might be, I'd have to think about it, but you know what I mean? It's like everything I've heard, it's all in there somewhere, and it all comes out, I think, or at least a lot of it comes out, in the songwriting.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm assuming there's also probably waves of where you're like really in the mood for a specific thing that you're pulling from as well.
Absolutely. But at the same time, I mean, I can think of like, I remember it was a long time ago, I was living just out in the middle of the woods somewhere. And I was like, in my mind, I was going to go out in the middle of the woods and I was going to write a up-tempo bluegrass song. That was what I was thinking. I had some things in my mind. I was strumming a guitar. I was like, oh, this could work. Let's work on this. And by the time I came back, I had a really slow song that is nowhere near a bluegrassy type of song. And we still play that song today. So I can go out and have something in mind, and it can, totally change directions as I'm going also.
Very interesting. This is probably a bit of a difficult question to answer, but when you start this process, you might have an idea or not. You just want to write something. How do you know when you found it? Like, oh, this is the song that I'm writing. I figured it out for the most part.
That is a tough one to answer.
Yeah.
I mean, songwriting for me happens in so many different ways. I've had songs where it just happens. I mean, literally a half hour later, I have a song. Not many of them, but it has happened.
Mm.
And then there's songs that have literally, like, I've come up with let's say a riff on guitar or a melody in my head or something like that, and it will get completed years later. Like I'll get into it and I won't be able to, it just doesn't go anywhere, or wherever I go, I don't like it anymore, or whatever. But that initial thought is still there somewhere, and it'll come back and it'll come back. And then all of a sudden it clicks, like who knows where, and I don't know how I mean, if I'm playing something or I'm singing something and I like it, then I like it. If it starts grooving, it's like, okay, this is a cool groove. I can work with this, and sometimes I get, almost all the way through and it's like, this isn't working anymore and I have to start over or just scrap the whole thing. I mean, once in a while I'll come across lyrics that I've written, like, in this room where I am or something. I'll find some papers like, wow, I remember when this was like something that I really thought that I could expand upon. And, I'll look at it and be like, maybe I could now. And it still won't happen, and we could be 10, 15 years later now, or even more, and it'll come up. Or I might find it and I might complete a song out of it. So I guess I have no answer to your question.
And that kind of answered my question to some degree, because yeah, I'm sure it's a very individual experience, or thing that you figure out.
Yeah.
I guess it's sort of in the same vein. When you're playing live shows, you guys have kind of a wealth of songs to pull from. How do you decide what you're playing each night?
There are very, very few times where we've ever had a set list. We don't do that. So it's on the spot. And a lot of times, I mean, where the band is now, I'd say in a typical show, maybe 70% or more of the songs we play are my songs that I've written. And therefore it's my turn, if you will, to play a song or to call the song. If I played a couple songs, I might, I might turn to Sarge, Eric Sargent, our guitar player and songwriter, and or either during the song while we're playing it, or right after, be like, hey man, it's your turn. Like, what do you want to do? It's your call. And then he'll call out a song. So I don't know how he picks the songs he wants to do. But I usually, it has to do with my mood, certainly. But I think more than anything else, I'm trying to like read the crowd sort of. And I'll take into account things I read online. Somebody may have mentioned that they, have never seen this song live and they've been to 100 shows and they're going to be at this show, and somewhere that might register with me. And then if I remember it, seems like the right time, I might play it. They might not even be there. I don't even know, but I might do that. There's a lot of things that could play into it, but for the most part, and certainly there are, those times where it's just like, I feel like playing a song, or we haven't played a song in a long time and I want to, I might think a few days beforehand or even earlier that day and think, wow, there's songs, because I think I have, I don't know how many, but probably close to 100 songs that Hookah does that I've written. So there's songs that we could go years without playing. And then I might think of something and be like, oh, it'd be pretty cool to play that song at the next show, and then we'll play it. Of course, I have to let the guys know earlier in the week, maybe text them or something, say, hey, you might want to dust this one off because we haven't played this in a long time. So you might want to give it a listen. So
I was going to say, you guys have to be really well rehearsed if you can just pull from hundreds of songs.
We are well rehearsed in the sense that we've played a lot over the years, but we don't really rehearse very much as far as that goes. It's more, it's not really muscle memory, but I guess if you consider your brain a muscle at all, I suppose it's kind of muscle memory. It's organ memory, I suppose, in some way. But you just kind of, it doesn't always go well when we pull out songs that we haven't played in a long time. But I think usually when it doesn't go well, it's more things that we notice than anybody else does. So that's good.
I think a lot of jam bands aren't really known for, you have to be really, I don't think it's very specific. Everything has to be exactly as it was.
No, we don't. There are very few written parts, so to speak, in any of our songs. We are, in that sense, we're jamming a lot. It's a lot of improvisation, but not necessarily in the sense that we're taking the song in a whole different direction, but in that, I'm not necessarily going to play my, piano part the exact same way through a whole song twice ever, probably.
So I believe you guys just did your music festival, Hookahville. How was it?
It was great. I mean, it's always a great time. This year, we do it twice a year, and this year we ran into some issues with venues. Our planned venues, for various reasons, we had to switch venues both times, kind of late in the game, and that makes it a lot more difficult. But luckily, we have a really good team of people, by Jim Garibaldi, who are flexible and able to do things quickly. So everything went off without a hitch, but it was kind of hectic working up the things. A lot of I don't want to say worry, but kind of worry. Not that it wouldn't happen or anything like that, but just that things would. I never really worry that it'll all come together, but this year was a little more stressful than usual. But the show itself was great. The bands were great. The crowd was great. Everybody had a good time, and that's really all that matters.
Excellent. I mean, I think you've talked about it a lot in the past, because I think it was, a very early music festival, especially for Ohio. But I'm not sure it's very common for bands to be involved in like the creation of a festival.
Right.
So it's probably like a lot of extra.
More and more, it's more and more these days, but definitely not when we started it. I mean, when we started it, I don't know if there were any festivals in Ohio, probably not. And I think that Hookahville definitely paved the way for a lot, let's say a whole lot of what's going on now with the festival scene, not just in Ohio, but everywhere. We kind of laid the groundwork, I think. And now there's a lot of festivals every weekend, everywhere. There's tons of them.
Yeah, I think you guys having such a heavy involvement in it, besides just playing, it sounds like you guys are also dealing with like a lot of the logistical elements, which I think is added stress that most bands don't have when they're playing a lot of these newer festivals. How is it going from this like massive thing to, now you're going back to like your normal venue shows around Ohio and other places? Is it kind of like a nice transition?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we're used to it. That's the way it goes. I mean, to be honest, the band members themselves aren't as involved as we used to be. I mean, we used to be really involved. And then we, when it was really big, like at the end of the last century and the beginning of this century, I guess would be the best way to put it. We had a huge crew of people that were working on Hookahvilles all year round. And we did have a say, and we had meetings about it and all that stuff. eventually we kind of got out of of doing as much like direct involvement with it. But as far as going back to playing other types of gigs, I mean, that's just what we do. I mean, the way I look at it anyways, and I think the whole band does, is that Hookahville is something where we get to, we don't do as many other festivals as we used to do. Where, we used to be on a lot of the bigger festivals around the country and stuff like that. We don't do as much of that as we used to do. So this is when we get to kind of put ourselves on the biggest stage of the year, on the best sound systems of the year, in front of, as many of our fans, and hopefully some people who don't know us too, just because they hear about Hookahville. But, it's like we get to throw this big party twice a year. And I don't know, I mean, I guess it would be sort of like, if it's your birthday and you have a big party and then the next day you go back to what you do every day, it's like, that's just what you do. It's not like this huge letdown or anything like that. And I love the regular, in quotes, regular shows also. I love that. It's more intimate. So there's no letdown or anything. It's just, now we do this. It is kind of, after the first Hookahville of the year, we always know it's only a few months to the second one. So that does make it kind of easier. But after this last one, now we have that long, like 9-month period until we do it again. But it's not something we dwell on or anything like that. It's just, we know it's not happening for a while, but there's other exciting shows coming up, like for instance, we're playing at Kent Stage. We love playing at the Kent Stage. We've always had a great time. It's a great stage. People like it there. So we'll do that. And then we'll move on to the next one. And, there's always something good in every show and every place we play. So, just go with the flow.
Excellent. I was going to say, so you guys are kind of very notably an Ohio band. I mean, you've played all over. You played, various shows in different countries, different states. How is it kind of being like based here and having like this nice, I guess kind of home base of fans that have known you guys a long time?
Great. I mean, a lot of people all over the country will talk down about Ohio and this and that. I love Ohio. I mean, there are things I don't like about it, of course, but as far as the music scene goes, and as far as being a band in Ohio, it's fantastic. It always has been. I mean, we were very fortunate, I guess. I mean, I won't say we're fortunate that we started in Ohio. There's no other place we could have started. But the way Ohio was and the way Ohio is set up, I guess you'd say, made it really easy to grow as a band. And we were lucky that, there's so many college towns. There's like 40 big college towns or something in Ohio, and a lot of good sized cities that are close together, which makes it really easy as opposed to being in, say, I don't know, California, where LA to San Francisco is whatever it is, 8-hour drive or something like that. There's nothing that you can't go 8 hours in Ohio. So it makes it really easy to go town to town, city to city, and play for new crowds all over, and easy for people to follow you around. And that, I guess that goes for this whole part of the country, not just Ohio, but it's great. And the people in Ohio are great. And, we're just fortunate that we've been able to settle in the way we have, because, we, like you said, we did the touring thing. We were on the road all the time and did that. And that had its upsides and downsides. And, now we're obviously a more regional band, and just kind of the way it is now.
That's kind of good to hear. I think a lot of people assume that to be a successful musician, you have to be based in New York or LA, or you have to be kind of a touring lifer.
I mean, how do you define success, right? I mean, success to me is that if you can do what you love and that's all you have to do, then that's pretty successful, right? So, or even if you have to do something else, but you're still able to do what you love, and you can supplement it, even if that's the way it goes. And especially if you can supplement it with something you love, to me, that's success. So, I guess you might have a better chance of hitting the big time or whatever if you are in New York, or if you're touring all the time. But a lot of bands tour all the time, and you hear about them, but they're not like necessarily making money. They're just touring all the time. So are they successful? Maybe not. It depends how they feel about it. So I definitely feel like, we've been around, whatever it is, 31 years, and we're still together. So I'd consider it as a great success.
I think that's a good way to think of it. I think that's true. I've talked to a lot of musicians so far, and pretty much a lot of them, because it's Kent Stage mostly, and a lot of them are musicians who've been playing for a long time. You know, they've had a few decades under their belt, and so many of them are just thrilled that they still get to do what they like and what they love doing. That's it. That's all they care about. They, you know,
That's it. I mean, when I can't play, and there hasn't been a lot of, many times that it's happened, but one would be I had to have a surgery and I couldn't play for 3 months. I mean, my wife was ready to kill me because of the way I get when I can't do that. And it's not related to making money. And that's not what it had anything to do with. It's that I couldn't play for people. I definitely, there was a level of, I don't want to get too dramatic about it, but a level of depression during the pandemic when we couldn't play live. And
Yeah.
as far as myself went, I was streaming out of my basement every week. It's kind of depressing. I mean, I know a lot of people stream all the time and they love doing it, and that's fine, but I need to play live. That's just what I need to do. I need that like reaction, that interaction with a crowd. And it's like you said, I mean, I get to do what I love to do, and I'm fortunate that way. And as long as I can do it, it'll be good. And if the time comes when I can't, I'm not going to wood here. I don't know what I'll do. Something I don't like to think about.
Yeah. I'm kind of glad you mentioned some of the COVID stuff. That was going to be my follow up, because I think everybody's sort of dealt with it differently. All these musicians who've been touring like all the time for years of their life, and there's a year where they just can't.
No, I mean, it was really difficult. And I mean, I think some people, they may have even gotten like this little respite that at first didn't seem too bad. But as it went on, I mean, it's, if you like, again, it all comes down to the same, we keep going to the same place. If you love what you do, right? So if you love what you do and you can't do it, then that's a problem, no matter who you are and what you do, right? And of course, there's the financial aspect of it too. For a lot of people, obviously that was very difficult too. But hopefully we're on the other side here, and that level of COVID, or I shouldn't even say that, the level of what has to happen because it exists, let's put it that way, won't get to that point again, hopefully. I mean, I'm knocking again, but that as long as we can play, that's it. As long as we can play, get out there and do what you like to do. And again, not just musicians, everybody who does anything. There were so many people who just, were stuck in their houses and couldn't go anywhere, or chose not to go anywhere, however you want to look at it. And it was a really difficult time.
Makes sense. Switch gears for a moment. I want to talk a minute about the band name. I know you guys have talked a little bit about how that came to be, but I'm not sure I've heard you guys talk about why the backwards E.
Okay, so it's actually a schwa, and it's backwards and upside down. And the reason for that is because the name of the band, Acoustic Hookah, when we finally settled on that, we didn't, not that anybody wouldn't think this anyways, but in our head, we didn't want people to think that we were an acoustic band. And we're definitely an electric band, or an amplified band, let's put it that way. So the word acoustic has nothing to do with electricity. The definition is sound as it is heard. So sort of like the acoustics in a room, that type of thing. The spelling is phonetic. So the schwa is the phonetic symbol for the sound and that's why we used it.
I like it. That's very creative.
Yeah, we weren't spelling it funny just to be funny. It actually had, in our heads, it had a purpose to be that way. And it became the symbol of the band, the schwa. So that kind of worked, had a double something. I don't know, worked a couple ways for us.
Yeah, I kind of had, like, I figured there had to be some type of, like, we picked this on purpose, there was purpose behind it.
Yeah, both acoustic and hookah are spelled phonetically. So when we spell the full name of the band, it's always in lowercase letters. We never use capital letters. We don't, other people do, but it's all lowercase letters with the schwa at the beginning is the correct spelling.
Very interesting. So I've got one last one for you. So what should people expect for their upcoming Kent Stage show?
I mean, if I had any clue, I'd tell you. No, I mean, we'll go up and we're gonna, it's gonna be fun. We haven't played an indoor gig in a long time, so it's gonna have that feeling, that sound of being inside, which is always exciting for us, I think. And like I said before, we love playing on that stage. So, we're going to come out and we're going to do our thing. We're going to rock and roll, and there'll be ups and downs musically. It won't be all dancey. We're going to slow it down for you, I promise, because I always do. And you know, we're just going to do our thing. I mean, I can't. That's the toughest one to answer right there. Is what can people expect? What they can expect is to hear us sound like us, and they can expect to be around a lot of really cool people because we have great fans and always have. So you know, if people show up and they haven't seen us before, they can pretty much be guaranteed they'll be accepted by everybody there, no matter who they are, no matter what they look like, or you know how they dress or anything like that. Nobody's going to care as long as you get into the music, and you know, you can sit down, you can get up and dance, you can do whatever you want to do, and it's all going to be good.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Looking forward to the show.
You too.